Chapter 10. Now rise, brethren, David said, and let me bless you. He mounted the steps and gathered the men in an embrace. God be merciful to us and bless us, and cause his face to shine upon us, so his way may be known on earth, his salvation among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the peoples praise you. Oh, let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you shall judge the people righteously and govern the nations on earth. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper, the Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil, he shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth, and even forevermore. Amen. Amen, Rayford said, and thank you. And now, is there anything I can do for you, sir? For me? David chuckled. The King of Israel is speaking to you, servant of God. Forgive me. I do have a question about another close friend and confidant of ours. The Jordanian. Yes. As a natural, he will be of tremendous value to the efforts against the other light. He and his wife will be relocated to their homeland. I hate to lose them. Only temporarily. There are many centuries to go, you know. And I'm sure you've already learned to trust the Lord's wisdom. Of course. That request was easy. Anything else I can do for you? Yes, actually, there is something. Name it. Rayford began to tell David of the Children of the Tribulation ministry. I know it well, David said. How can I help? Rayford told him how the daily highlights were the stories from the Bible. The children plead for these above refreshments, above games, above singing. Indeed? They love the stories and demand to hear them again and again. And I can't help but think what an unspeakable thrill it would be for them, for us, for everyone involved, if... Oh, I can't give it utterance. It's too much to hope for. You of little faith, David said. You have not because you ask not. Very well. Just imagine if their heroes were there in person to tell their own stories one day. Who? Noah? Done. Really? Seriously? I have spoken. Who else? How many dare I ask for? Test the limit of your faith. Joshua. Done. And I shall send Caleb with him. Who else? You. With pleasure. I wonder what story of mine they might ask for. The men laughed. I am more than grateful, Rayford said. Go in peace. Tell me, Cat, Kenny said. You've brought me this far. I found myself in my room, sitting on my bed, praying for my friends. And you were not yet a believer yourself? Not really, no. Ironic, isn't it, to pretend to be still holding out, all the while knowing whom to plead with for the well-being of my friends? Funny thing was, Jesus, as close and ever-present as he had always been, wouldn't speak to me. I had learned verses as a child. How could I not? So I knew the problem. The scriptures say that the effective fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. I was hardly righteous, and so, regardless how fervent, my prayers were anything but effective. So, they didn't avail much. She smiled. They availed nothing. But the exercise was good for me because while Jesus wasn't speaking to me, he was impressing something deep within me. I was suddenly overwhelmed with the fact that I was no better than my friends, regardless of the reason for their disbelief. In fact, I was no better than Lucifer himself. I can see by your look that you feel I've overstated it, Kenny, but think about it. I was guilty of the very thing that got Lucifer cast out of heaven. I wanted my own way. I may not have said I wanted to be God or imagined myself bigger or better than he is, but I wanted to be the God of my own life, and that usurped his right and his authority. Kenny was moved. Only God could have taught you that. My feeling exactly. I came to the conclusion that he may have been silent, but he was still communicating. I suddenly saw myself for what I was, a self-possessed sinner in desperate need of forgiveness and salvation. I knelt on the floor, and, that didn't seem low enough. For my whole life I had held Jesus at bay. I lay flat on the floor, weeping, pleading for forgiveness, and committing myself to the Lord forever. He has been with me ever since, and I have never looked back or regretted it. And your friends? 2 actually became believers. 3 others I'm still praying for, but they're totally enmeshed in tall. I know God is sovereign, but in the flesh, I'm nearly out of hope. He allows them to make their choices, and it seems they have. Kenny was tempted to tell her of his and his friends' plans to try to infiltrate and thwart Tall at some level. But for the same reason Ramey and the others were slow to embrace the idea of Zaki's bringing in a new face, he decided to wait. Rayford couldn't quit talking as he rushed up the causeway back toward his home. Irene thought she would miss Indonesia, and of course she misses many people, but she has so quickly found a home helping with Kot, which she just loves. Now to have to tell her that we have a new assignment. Closer to home than Indonesia, anyway, Chaim said. Well, that's true. But then when I tell her that our heroes of the faith will be coming to share with the kids their own stories in person, well, she'll want to be here for that, and... Rayford, Chaim said, slow down. I am not 150 anymore. And could one of us get a word in? We were silent long enough in the presence of the prince. Yeah, Rayford said, sorry. Could you believe that? An audience with King David himself? We were there, partner, Max said. Now just stop a minute and take a breath. We're going to scoot a mile past our valley and have to backtrack. At the end of the day, Kenny found it hard to concentrate on what Ramey wanted. He had called the Millennium Force together at one end of the property, and all Kenny wanted was to report to his mother his enthusiasm for the new recruit. Zaki actually asked whether he should bring Qasim. Are you serious? Ramey said. He's who we're discussing. We're going to vote then? Because you know what I'll say. He's ready. He's perfect for the assignment. Ramey held up a hand. Zaki, let's use a little discernment here, and remember that you and I were the only ones among us who chatted with him. I know, but Bahira and Kenny trust us, don't they? We liked him. I mean, if there are more formalities, let's get him in here so everybody can be as sold on him as we are, and... I'm not sold on him, Zaki, Ramey said. Neither am I, his sister said. You weren't even here, Bahira. I wish I had been. Then we could vote, and it would be 2-1 against. What was your concern, Ramey? Everything. He's young, immature. He doesn't look right, doesn't comport himself appropriately. He talks too fast and too much. And frankly, I don't like what he has to say. He didn't do himself any good talking about his own conversion. He used all the right words, but they seemed just rote to him. And he didn't do himself any favors trying to summarize his own ministry. I don't think he's led one child to Christ in all the time he's been here. To be fair, Kenny said, still wishing they could wrap this up so he could make sure his mother hired Yekaterina, he has been confined to the recreational division. Even rec counselors lead kids to the Lord occasionally, Bahira said. You'd almost have to work at it not to. Zaki sat shaking his head. You're going to blackball this guy. I can't believe it. How am I going to tell him? You shouldn't have invited him in the first place, Bahira said. Then you wouldn't have to tell him anything. You should have just suggested we get to know him and check him out without suggesting or implying anything. If he's disappointed or offended, it's only because you overpromised. Okay, I'm sorry if I thought he would be perfect for us. Guess he can call off his trip. Kenny stole a glance at Raimi. What are you talking about? Raimi said. He's going to France in a few days, determined to infiltrate and bring us a report. Don't you want that? He won't be going under our auspices, Raimi said, and you'd better be sure he says nothing about us. Kenny has made some inroads with the Jospin brothers, and we have to be careful not to compromise that. Zaki looked embarrassed. What? His sister said. I know you. Tell me you didn't mention the Jospins to Qasim. Well, I didn't know. Who else was he supposed to try to observe there? If he's not looking for someone, how would he even get in? Stop him, Raimi said. He mustn't go. If he's determined to infiltrate some tall cell, there are plenty of others. You want to brief him first? Zaki said. Make sure he doesn't give us away? No. I want him not to even think he's going on our behalf, because he's not. Zaki sighed. He's not going to be happy. That makes two of us, Bahira said. Kenny's mother was preparing to leave when he finally reached her. I need to hurry, she said. You're invited to your grandfather's to hear of his audience with King David today. What? If you don't know about it, you may be the only one. Grandma wasn't supposed to say anything, but, well, it's getting around. Can you come? Wouldn't miss it. But I need to give you my impression of Miss Risto. No, you don't. I'm sorry. I hired her, his mother said. Just like that? Yes. Is there a problem? We all loved her. So my interview with her was just a formality? Chloe laughed. Your interview? You think I couldn't see how you two connected? Your report was a foregone conclusion. Then I can expect her tomorrow? Oh, she'll be here. But you shouldn't expect her. She's been assigned to recreation. You're not serious. Of course I am. Admit it, Kenny. She'd be a distraction for you. Don't worry, she'll still be in the vicinity. You can get to know her if you wish. Now, come on. Your grandparents are waiting.